but you have this very common elements of the genre, and you like embed like in every like thing that you've seen like hundreds of times, you know, like a portrait or like a fight or like whatever, like which fits the genre, whether it's horror or something else, and you try to fit your specific personal ideas within those codes. That's how I view the thing.
Yeah, this is completely true. Like, I like what you're saying about the tropes and the code of the genre, because I tend to, when I develop projects, I tend to be seduced by those, I would say, structural narrative elements of a thriller or a horror. And I like the novelty of adding something to that, either a narrative twist or an angle that you haven't seen. Uh, Again, we're thinking through the concept of elevated genre, and I took some notes that we can after this call review together. It's just, it feels like there tends to have a narrative twist or a narrative angle that hasn't been explored before, while using the codes and the trope uh, of um, of a genre, an existing genre.
Mm.
I could just jump into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be back. I'm just gonna plug my computer, but you can continue.
Okay. So that made me think of like some kinds of elevated genre films. What I think they do structurally is like the story itself is not actually a horror story or a thriller story. So like, for example, Black Swan is not a thriller, and there's a kind of famous quote from Natalie Portman where she was saying that when she was working on Black Swan, Natalie Portman basically was saying that she didn't really understand that she was in a thriller. She thought she was in a drama. And only after the film was edited by Darren Aronofsky and had the music and the sound design and the editing completed did she fully understand that what she was in was actually a thriller and not like more of a drama. Like, she couldn't, from the screenplay, she didn't quite understand how dramatic it was going to be transformed by the auteur of the filmmaker. So, and then there's also a movie I very much like called The Witch by Robert Eggers. It's like, it's not a horror story. It's a story about religion and superstition and a family that is afraid of a witch, and they're going crazy because they think that their daughter is a witch because they are superstitious. And so what I like about these kinds of stories, not that this is for every elevated genre, like obviously this is not like a Christopher Nolan movie, but what I like about these stories is that they are actually dramas, but they are portrayed through the tropes of a horror. So
definitely, yeah, it's like it's like every Darren Aronofsky movie almost, because you have this feeling when you're watching, even like, you know, The Wrestler. I don't know if, you know, it's The Wrestler is categorized as, you know, a drama or like a thriller, but for me, when you feel it, you feel the same emotion that when you're like watching a thriller, even if it's a guy just struggling with his like wrestling life and having those dramatic issues. It's like you have a feeling of oppression, and just with the pacing, with like the very subjective cameras, with like the sound design, with like the music, as you were saying, and the editing, and like, so just using the visual and audiovisual aspect of cinema, like when you're actually making the film, changes completely the experience of the film, even if, you know, as Natalie Portman like was saying, you know, like, I feel like reading a drama, because like it could be made as a drama if the like editing, like audiovisual thing was completely different and like going for drama codes, but instead it goes for a completely different like experience. And so like, I guess that besides the script, what you're like actually like, what the director is actually like choosing to go for, changes completely like the almost the meaning of the thing, and certainly the emotional journey that you go through as an audience,
which makes it really complicated to pitch it, is I was going to kind of bring it full circle. Nicolas and I were talking about. How do you pitch something when the script is not indicative of your style as a director necessarily?
You know what? This is a great note, and we could have that as
It's a whole different.
whole different conversation, because
that's next week.
Just to go a little bit on that, it is challenging to pitch in elevated genre films, or what I like to call elevated genre films, because if you pitch it from a very simple way. Well, let me go back to what you said about Black Swan. Some great movies tends to in these genres tends to have a pretty classic story genres, and then it's subverted, it's changed throughout the process of the story. So sometimes I think it could be challenging, to pitch those. But just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, it's like when Paul Verhoeven. I've rewatched. Actually, no, I've watched, because I have never watched it. Starship Trooper recently.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And when it was, when it was pitched to the studios, etc., they took it literally. They didn't like fully like. There was a big misunderstanding on whether it's actually satirical. And so you're actually like writing this very, very generic thing, and people in the audience were like, "What is this bullshit movie? It's so bad." Like, no, it knows like the characters are really like weak, etc., and that like it knows all this. Like, but it's interesting how just like misunderstanding a project can is for me, like the surprising thing was that even if there were misunderstanding, the project still got done, so that like they wanted to have like a serious, very like war, humans against alien, first degree film, and they were willing to give the money for that, and there was the action, there were like this like cool fight sequences, and you have all this in the film, and it's really cool and it's entertaining. But like it's so weird for me that at this level of budget it still was done at this huge misunderstanding gap, like in the what the film is actually meaning and saying. So I guess it's like it goes back to pitching. Like I don't know how he pitched the film, but it was not pitched in the truthful way.